afternoon. Welcome everybody to what is the first sensiLab forum for 2016. So, thank you. So thank you to Tom for organising it. Hopefully we've got another year full of really great seminars like we had last year, and we're very privileged to have Dr. Nicoloudis to kick us off. So Nicholas is a global solution architect for SAP, or SAP Australia. And he's also very proudly Monash alumni. So Nicholas completed his PhD in computer science here at Monash back in 2005. So and in kind of the last decade's done a lot of things. He's been very involved with kind of mobile topics and mobile development and stuff like that. So did a bit of lecturing here at Monash early on. And then got involved with some projects that ended up becoming quite a significant part of the Microsoft.NET framework back a decade or so ago. In the meantime, he's also worked published a number of papers with regard to adaptive mobile data and technologies. He's worked with companies such as Silverback MDM, Intermec Technologies at the end of last decade, and was a founder and technical architect at iComply, which was the world's leader in mobile OHS auditing solutions. Today, Nicholas is going to talk to us a bit about wearables, nearables, and the Internet of Things as part of his role at SAP, and I'm very happy to see a Star Wars reference on the very first slide. So, welcome, Nicholas, and we look forward to the presentation and the question session afterwards.
No, thank you. No, really appreciate it. And actually, I'm actually privileged. I feel privileged to be here. You know, when I was asked to come back to Monash to present, it's always nice to come back. And definitely for me, being an alumni, seeing how it's changed, I'm really impressed. Like I walked through these, and as I said, I want to take photos later because I love seeing what I saw over there regarding being able to put together your own things, your own electronics. We didn't have any of that back in the day. We would have to fund it ourselves in some weird ways, or get Microsoft to give us a whole lot of money to try and do it. But either way, it's fantastic to see that it's kind of evolved in a different way here. And I'm once again really looking forward to presenting here. But what I'm going to do actually today is really talk about. Rather than, I guess, the deep technical elements that we normally kind of go into, I really want to talk about focusing on the user and the user experience in technologies. I'm here actually representing SAP, who's my current employer. I'm in a global role, so I look after a lot of our large global customers, anything from BHP, I'm speaking to Nestle, Fonterra, actually across the waters, you name it. Actually, some of the top 500 Fortune companies use SAP. I'm not going to go through and give you a spiel on SAP, but yeah, unfortunately, Monash also uses SAP. And speaking to the admin staff earlier, I guess their user experience is why we see people like Darth Vader here going, the users strike back. And we've actually done a lot in the last few years to try and remove that because, as I go to the next slide, this is traditionally what people think of when they see SAP. There's German on there, which it might as well be German, right? Because it does, to me, when I first worked at SAP, I hadn't come from an SAP background. I'd been in startups, I was doing a lot of UI, HTML5, all these other native iOS and Android, and I came to SAP, and one of the first things I had to do was a timesheet. And I hit one of these screens and I've gone, oh my gosh, where do I start? What button do I hit? It really wasn't nice and easy to use. I kind of went through the web and I tried to have an analogy onto how the usability is explained here. So this is an example that I have, a real life example that probably males can relate to. But it's, so just to give you an idea here, usability-wise, in the sense of engineering and technical terms, this plumber was brilliant, right? He was told, given this short space, short little area, and he's gone, look, you need to fit 2 urinals in this space here. Can you do it? And he's gone, I'm going to do it. And he did. But, okay. how you try and use this would be another interesting challenge, right? A few jokes around about crossing swords, and maybe if you had one guy standing back and another guy a bit closer, or you could possibly do some kind of algorithm to work out the optimal distances to be able to do this without splashback and everything. But it's a flawed user experience, right? Because it's not easy. It has all kinds of challenges, and to me, great work on the
specified it have to be used 2 at a time.
Well, that's all right. Well, we'll look at it. You could just use 1 at a time. But yeah, this is 1 at a time, and you could be drunk as well because you've got the side there to catch you. But the thing is that the plumber saw it and he thought this was a good idea, but he didn't actually think, how am I going to use this, right? So, and that's I think where SAP's kind of come from. Engineering-wise, technically-wise, an SAP system runs really well, it does all your payroll, does all these HR extensive systems, but when it comes down to usability, you kind of get lost, right? So, we currently, at SAP, we thought, well, it's actually time to change the game a bit and actually move from, I guess, we'd keep throwing features at things. Oh, look, you can do this, or you can quickly add another button here and shortcut and whatever, but it still wasn't very, very usable. So what we had to do is kind of shift from, I guess, features to an actual experience and understand that it's not features which people want in their solutions, it's an experience. Well, it's like with anything that we have, we like to have a good experience, and currently that wasn't the case. So we invested a lot of money in, I guess, improving the user experience. I also have some other slides, and I actually didn't include them in here. Some of the other big companies like Coca-Cola, obviously Apple, Google, and all that on their investment in the experience, and actually the return on investing in experience has actually come quite high. So they've actually benefited from what's called investing in user experience, because it's come back in return because people want to keep using your systems, obviously. So one of the key terms which is kind of being promoted now, and I'm in the business world here, so whether it's right or wrong, we use, I guess, some of the big independent vendors there. So Gartner's obviously a large one, and a lot of people quote Gartner, and they have this term which they've I guess coined, called digital humanism, and the point of digital humanism is putting the human in the center, or thinking of putting the human in the center of designing systems, thinking about the user first, okay? Not thinking about the engineering and all the other elements and how things are going to run, but actually, how's your user actually going to interact with the system? Okay. Now, this slide deck I was meant to present last year, I've kind of evolved this, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically, what we found is that we weren't really understanding our users. We were getting requirements. We had guys sitting there, really bright guys sitting there capturing things, but they weren't actually talking to the end user. We'd normally be talking to the IS team or a manager saying, actually, this is what my users want. But we weren't actually getting to the user. Okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit on, but I'll talk about a little bit later about what we did to kind of resolve that. So what we did is, we ran a few workshops, design thinking workshops. I'll go into what design thinking is if you haven't heard of it. But we ran a few design thinking workshops with some of our customers. We came up with some ideas which actually resonated really well with our customers. And some of it actually didn't involve using a keyboard anymore. Right? It's about improving usability using, I guess, wearables and nearables, and I guess the other technologies we have available to us. So what I'll do here, this was an example of a solution we have. Now, you can actually download it for free off iTunes, called Visual Enterprise. Now, Visual Enterprise it's almost like a CAD application for like your desktops and your mobile devices, but it's really simple. And you can create animations and make it very visual for the user. Now, what I've done actually here, so I've actually got my Myo band here, but rather than actually demonstrating it, because as you know, with these kind of technology bits, they can sometimes be challenging. But what I've done is I've recorded myself previously using the Myo. What I'll do is I'll pause. Bring that up on here. So we pre-recorded myself using the Myo band and using the Visual Enterprise viewer. So let me just go. It's not a very long video, but as you can tell, I'm doing gestures and stuff to work with that. Now you think, well, okay, gestures, interaction and all that, okay, that seems cool, but what's the benefit? So one of the key customers I was demonstrating that to was BHP. Now, why is that important to a customer like them? Well, the reason is they're operating heavy machinery, okay? And these are guys out in the field, your field service users, okay? Field service users to normally go out there and be able to operate this kind of machinery could easily use the iPad, but the challenge is that they're possibly wearing gloves, okay? They're working with expensive tools or heavy tools, okay? So one of the challenges you have is that, okay, you've got this visual enterprise, you could set up a little, tough tablet. I mean, I've got it on an iPad, but you might have a little tough pad or something there showing you the visualization. But every time you'd want to go through the animation, you'd probably have to take your gloves off, you put your tools down, click, and it takes you through the next point. We do have a play, but at the same time, you probably couldn't time it correctly to make it work properly. So using the Myo, what they were able to do is, use gestures. I'm going to swipe to move into the next screen. I'm going to rotate the 3D or the engine or the motor to be able to see this is a pump in this instance, to see where this screw goes in exactly, and it plays the animation. So, and what that does is not only has it improved, I guess, efficiency and time, but it reduces actually a bigger item, which is an occupational health and safety hazard. Okay, the minute you get someone to take off gloves, pull down tools, especially in this kind of dangerous environment, you risk having an OH&S issue. Because more than likely they'll put the tool in the wrong place and something unfortunate is about to occur. Okay? And so in just that itself was enough to kind of sell the idea that actually this is really important, this would be great, let's see what we can do to implement it. Now, did they implement it? I'll be honest, no. BHP, as you know, are in a world of pain for other reasons. Commodity prices have crashed and everything. They really like the concept, and hopefully when commodity prices come back, we can try and roll this back in, but for now, this is still an idea which I'd like to progress forward when they have the funding in place. The other advantage of the band as well is it's got haptic feedback. Okay, so for example, if they go to, let's say, undo a screw and they're about to, or they point in the wrong space, it can possibly shake. Now, again, cautious because we're in an OHS environment. You don't want it shaking while they've got a spanner in their hand about to change a pump over, but it could have that haptic feedback as well to give them that two-way interaction with that current piece of technology. As I said, you can download this, you can use it on iPads only, not on iPhones at this point in time, but yeah, Visual Enterprise View, it's quite cool. There's a default animation and 3D CAD which you can use there. The next demo, which I won't show because I've got it on my iPad, but I'll talk through it. Was with Australia Post. Now we've actually got several demonstrations we had for Aussie Post. We've implemented Google Glass. Now Google Glass, I know a lot of people make fun of. They're going, it's the worst bit of technology ever created. You look like a cyborg. People are scared of you. And don't get me wrong, I got first-hand experience of having that. Right? So we tried to do a concept with ANZ Bank, and with one of the guys, we were just having a coffee meeting in one of the local cafes, and I put on the glass and I said, oh look, you see ANZ Bank. And as soon as I put on the glass, I had the waitress turn around and go, are you recording me? Are you putting me on the web? Are you tweeting me? And she really freaked out, and rightfully so, because I actually have a headset with the camera on there, and people had heard about the possibility. So it really didn't resonate well in that consumer world, okay? But here, we're in the warehouse environment, okay? Here, you're not really dealing with other people, you're dealing with other machines, you're dealing with, endless array of, bins and so forth to be able to stock your materials. So in this kind of environment, the Google Glass actually made sense, okay? And we have a few large customers globally actually using this solution where, I can show you the video later. They sit there, they scan the item, and it shows them where to put the item and basically automate the process for them, giving them the intelligence there. Now, I was going to bring in the Google Glass in here as well, but again, I avoid using Google Glass only because it can be temperamental at times as well. Like with all these technologies, it can be temperamental. As it will improve, I imagine it will get a lot better, but we've got some really cool examples there. The other one here is actually on the iPad, and what we created is basically a location application, And again, I think I'll have to show people later what this app does. But your standard postal delivery, okay? The postie goes to deliver it at home, you're not home, okay? So what happens, they leave a card, then you've got to go into the post office, they scan the card, or the girl runs out the back, takes 10 minutes, especially if it's Christmas, because there's parcels everywhere, they don't know where it is, and comes back out and then says, okay, we think this is it, scan, we're all done. So what we thought is, well, how about if we change the game? How about if we had the app so we could actually, let's say when the parcel comes back in, they get a notification on their phone or on their watch. So we've written an app which does that, so they get a notification on their watch. So they don't even have to go home. So on the way back from work, they know they've got to pick up a parcel from the post office. They go into the post office, and now what's happened during that time is the postie's gone to the post office, handed the parcel, and allocated an iBeacon onto the parcel, just clipped it on, and put it in the back. That's that screen over there. Then what we have is as it clips on, it takes a photo of the parcel and the beacon together, and it knows where it's been stored. So then when the user comes in with their phone or their watch, they scan it, and then the Australia Post user then uses their device, locates it because it's got a location using the iBeacon technology, finds it, and then confirms by doing a scan and has a picture to make sure it's all right. So taking something which would normally take 10 minutes, we took it down to 2. Okay? And that was actually really popular. But again, Australia Post is one of these businesses which, so there's two sides of it. There's Australia Post and there's AusPost Blue, which is Star Trek. Star Trek is doing really well. AusPost is doing terribly. Okay? So to get this across the line at AusPost, unfortunately, they're at this point in time, they'll look at it again this year, but it hasn't been put through yet. We're hoping this year will happen. The next one was a Apple Watch demo, which again, I'm happy to show, I guess, at a later point. But the whole idea was, this is the whole predictive, being able to predict what your next user is, or next step of your user is. So we worked together with ANZ Bank, even though I've got SAP here, ANZ Bank was the actual customer. And they wanted to understand how they could better engage with the younger, or I guess, newer set of users which are coming in. Now, what they're looking at is, I guess, mid-20s, single. They have a term called mass affluent because they're single, they're young, they're earning very good income, and they're currently looking at money to spend. So what we've got is we've got a social media tracker. So they've given us permission to look at their social media. So we've got things like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And, in LinkedIn it pops up saying she's got a new job. That fires a trigger in the application, but that's one possible trigger. She also tweets that she's got a new job, so it confirms that, yep, that's definitely true. And what we've done is we've had a look at what she already owns, and we then have what we call NBO, next best offer. Okay, so next best offer, looking over here, there's a few tick boxes, and one of the key things there is an investment property. Okay, so what we realise is that she's got her ANZ app, and she's using the mortgage calculator as well, which also sends a trigger. Okay, I've got all this running on the iPad, so happy to show you again later. And what that does is that sends a notification real time to the mortgage broker on the iPad. Hey, this person's interested in buying buying an investment property. Just letting you know. Okay. All those triggers are being captured in the back-end system. So what happens next? Well, she's out on a Saturday morning. She's having coffee in South Yarra. Okay. She's there with one of her friends, and before you know it, she gets a notification on her Apple Watch that, hey, there's this really great property around the corner from here, open for inspection, possibly around your price range. Would you like to go in and have a look? At that point, it tells her where to go, click OK. She goes there. iBeacons by the real estate agent are placed around the property, so as soon as she walks in, the real estate agent's notified because he's connected with the bank system that she's there. This is her demographic. So they don't have to sit there and hassle you like they do, asking your name, your phone number, email. They've already got that information. Then the next thing that happens is she then gets an offer on her phone saying, oh, by the way, for today we'll give you a special interest rate fix to accept, click OK. Now the loan doesn't start straight away. What we do is we process what we call a pre-loan approval. Okay? Because real loans to go through, unfortunately, still in this modern world, are quite painful. If anyone's been through the process, I'm sure they know. So it goes through what we call a pre-loan approval. It hits OK. It takes about 10 minutes, and then comes back saying your pre-loan has approved. So then she's happy because she goes, actually, I can buy this property, keep it on track, and it's engaging with the users. Now, again, I want to emphasise the user has agreed to use this service. We don't want people just, randomly banks, as you're walking down, spamming you and doing all that kind of information. This is something that has been agreed to. So again, the whole privacy and all that, making sure that we try and be ethical, vendors in this world. Well, in this part of the world we have to. In other parts of the world, there's different stories that happen there. But in this part of the world, we try and play using the right kind of approaches and privacy rules. But where I've kind of evolved, okay, so these are all kind of nice, but where I wanted to go is this is using the whole nearables and wearables, but where I've kind of moved on to now is this whole idea of enchanted objects. Now, I guess yourselves in academia have probably heard of the idea of the enchanted object. David Rose, yes, no, maybe, okay, oh, that's all right. I like it when I walk in. People don't know.
The MIT guy.
Yeah, the MIT guy. Yeah. So the whole umbrella, he's got one of the examples he gives is the umbrella where you're about to walk out the house and you see your umbrella glowing in the corner and you're going, it's glowing blue, and it's notifying you real time that it's going to rain. Make sure you take me now. In Melbourne, you'd probably have it go all kinds of weird colours because you get anything in that day. But that's the example he gives, as in the umbrella is letting you know that it's going to rain. Take me. So we played with a few customers actually, and we had a few concepts. The first one we did was actually with Dulux, the enchanted paint can. Okay. Now this was really interesting because with Dulux, you think, okay, why would you want to do that with Dulux? And actually, I came up with this whole new business model for them, right? What I called it RAS, right? Renovation as a service. Okay. Because what happens here? So you want to renovate. Well, you buy the paint, but the thing is that with the paint, you want to make sure it's been stored well, it's been tracked well, all this kind of information. But not only that, if you're about to do a renovation, chances are you're not only about to buy paint, you're about to buy what's called wall filler, you're possibly about to buy some nails, maybe some door fittings, maybe something. And the Dulux group, I don't know if you ever know, sell all these things, right? So there's an opportunity there to kind of, as you take this smart tin with you, okay, it can then start making recommendations. Oh, by the way, you've bought this tin, we recommend using this product and this product and this product to be able to, to renovate your house. And what we also did is we came up with the idea is, through the mobile app, you take a photo of your home, it then sends it to one of their workshops in China where a guy there goes, okay, recommendations. So they recommend this fertilizer because it looks like your garden needs work, this gate, whatever. And you can choose, actually, that's a good idea, maybe not, that's a good idea. And then you get this whole package of goods delivered to your door with all these things that they've recommended. Okay? And you've accepted. Okay? So it's about changing the game there and kind of how we can engage users and making sure that they're approving it to, I guess, get more product through the door. The other one I did was the enchanted beer. So last year we worked with a company called Lion, and they own the Little Creatures brand. Okay, so any of you who drink beer, I've actually still got that beer there on my, and everyone's going, when are you going to drink it? You've got to drink it. I've got to drink it at some point. But in this one, it's a little bit of a different experience, and actually the guys from Lion loved it. So the idea, I guess, is I wanted to make the Little Creature beer a little creature. Okay? So the idea that your beer is alive, okay, and for you to consume it the best, okay, you've got to have it at under 5 degrees. Okay? Because if you have warm beer, who wants warm beer? Unless, I know there are certain places around the world that like warm beer, but I know in Australia we like cold beer, right? So what it does is, and what I actually did is I put an IoT sensor on the beer, okay? Actually, let me play the video. So I created a little video which hopefully explains the story, and if not, then I'll go back and I'll explain it. So, because if I stand here, the mic will kind of hopefully pick up the sound. So the whole idea is we've got the beer, and you know, it wanted to learn or wanted to get to know people. So what I thought then is, okay, how are we going to get it to engage? Let's add a little IoT sensor on it. And had to do some coding, obviously, because we had to do something with it. And what I did is, when you grabbed the beer, picked it up, accelerometer would identify it's been picked up. If the temperature wasn't right, it would then talk to you. It says it's too hot, put me back in the fridge. I'm nice and cold, drink me. So once it was cool enough to tell you, come back and drink me now. Now, the little creatures were actually little creatures, they were my kids. Okay? So I've got my son and daughter, I recorded them and I added them to the clip. And you know, that example, especially for Lion, resonated really well, and I love the idea. And now we're currently in the process of coming up with the idea, but they've got, rather than putting it on each beer, they've got the little cases that you put in the fridge, the thick, what are they called? The tap kings. So using the tap king to basically say, come and drink me, or you know, keep me in the fridge. The most recent one I did, and this one actually I'll actually do a demo, and I'll show you a bit of the environment that I used as well. So we've got a development environment called Web IDE, which is basically like an IDE, which you don't even have to install on your computer, you just use through Chrome. Okay. I will just quickly fill that in. Put that back up. Yeah. So this idea we demonstrated actually to one of our big customers, Fonterra. Now, Fonterra, if you don't know who Fonterra are, they're a large dairy group based out of New Zealand. Actually, in New Zealand, they provide 13% of their GDP. Okay, so when things go wrong with Fonterra, the government comes and kicks in and brings army resources and all kinds of things to try and help them out, right? Because they play a serious role in providing the country's GDP. Now, I evolved the enchanted objects a bit more to enchanted milk. But with enchanted milk, it's actually more important because, okay, hot beer, you'll get a bit upset, right? You're having a hot beer. But with milk, it's actually quite critical. And you know, there's been a lot of bad publicity, bad press about bad milk being given to babies, and there's been a few actual disasters about what's happened there. So they actually really like the idea. Watching this, I am using a 4G modem, which is here we go. And I'm also using a trial account. So just to give you some insight, this account that I'm using, it's running on our in-memory database called HANA. And we've actually made it so you can get free trial accounts. And the free trial accounts are open till the end of day, right? So you can go in there, play. If you don't want to use it anymore, don't have to use it, but it's all stored in the cloud. And yeah, if you're interested, let me know. Happy to show you how to get that. And it's got a few services which are quite interesting as well. I'm using the IoT services. So yeah, it's basically an IDE environment on the web, which you can have a play with. So what I'll do is I'll do the Fonterra one, and I can just simply run. And yeah, integration with Git, so you can, I've got two. And what it does is it gives you a way to run it live on the web. And that's me running it, although I've also got, you can also deploy it, so you can have a permanent URL. Just clean this up a bit. So that's it running in debug mode. I'll leave it. Oh no, I'll put the proper one in milk. And once you deploy, again, you don't have to pay for that. It's things that we provide as part of the platform. Now, the temperatures and the information is kept, it's actually previously gauged. So I've kind of run a quick test and then turned it off. But what I'll do is I'll turn my little sensor on again. Hopefully I haven't killed the battery. Oh, there it is, it's on. Now, to make this work, I also have it connected to my phone, so I'll just quickly connect. What I'll do is I'll put it in here because it'll probably start making some strange noises. Now, I did bring my enchanted milk tin because I left it in New Zealand, so I'm having to use my enchanted paint can. So, although you'd never drink paint, hopefully never make that mistake. Here we go. So now it's going and it should start, everything's gone back to 0. Okay, so now it's reading real temperatures. Okay. So what I've got here, or what I demonstrated to them is, here's a dashboard. It's using Internet of Things attached to the bottle. Now, the way I actually demonstrated, it knew that the bottle was empty, so then it would automatically possibly send a notification telling them, well, actually, I need to get a new bottle, buy a new bottle from the supermarket while you're out there. Is I used the light sensor, so I was able to capture what were the perfect light conditions were to have an empty bottle and a full bottle. So now if I open this up, I don't actually know if there's enough light in here to trigger anything, but we'll see all that. Yeah, that's not going to trigger anything, 0.3. No. There we go. Okay. So that lets you know that it's time to get a new thing of milk. Now, it's also set off the warning, which is interesting. Let me go back to my... It gets annoying after a while, I know. So this is the other one that I had, and I think this one is the one where I kind of set the settings a bit better. So what happens is once you deploy, it deploys the code as is. I made modifications here, so it's still safe. So your milk is it there, but it's still safe. Pointing to the light. Now what I'll do is I've actually set the threshold to about 20 degrees, 22 degrees. So I'm going to it's now set the siren off, saying that your milk has now reached a dangerous level, right? So at this point, something needs to happen. Something in the supply chain's gone wrong. We need to possibly do a recall. We need to do a trace. I am actually going to save your ears by just putting myself on mute here. There we go. Because that will go on and on. It heats up and then the sensor itself is a little Texas Instrument one. I don't know what happens to it, but it doesn't seem to cool down once you heat it up very well. I'll leave it there so it cools down. But yeah, what you can do is actually have a trace. So at this point here, I can say, okay, at what point did we, if I click on the tile, let me go across. It has, a trace of where the temperatures go up and down. So then you can do a full, supply chain back and say, okay, at that point, that's where things started to cause trouble. So it might be with a particular transport and logistics provider, or maybe that particular truck, its fridge broke at a certain point. Just to give you that real-time insight. So, and that's actually really important to a customer like Fonterra, where they pride themselves on quality products, on making sure that their products meet quality standards, that when you buy them, they've been kept and managed well. When I actually visited New Zealand last week, the first thing you do when you walk through the gates of New Zealand customs is they've got powdered milk campaign, but not even in English, in Chinese, because they realise that's their biggest market for selling quality powdered milk, and they want to make sure that that's the first thing you see when you walk into the country. So that's how important this is. So to be able to provide them with this kind of simple dashboard, this took me about 4 hours to kind of put together on our platform. just to give you a bit more insight, so that's the development environment. We also then have, I guess, what we call the HANA Cloud Platform itself, which is, I guess, the registry of where all the services exist, and I guess where you manage your account. So let me go to my HANA Cloud Platform service. Interestingly enough, I see that my milk's, the cow's still mooing, because I can see the little speaker popping up on the little dashboard. Stop. Yeah, this dashboard is in Germany, by the way, so it's going all the way to Germany using a 4G connection. Ooh. Okay, there we go. Give you some important updates as well. So this is basically your cockpit. So what I've actually got in here are different services. So if I go into my services here, as you can see, I'm in Europe trial. Actually, whenever you do a trial account, it'll be in Europe trial. We've got all kinds of weird things. We've got gamification service, document service, persistence, translation, Internet of Things, which is a service that I'm currently using at the moment, and mobile services. I've actually used the mobile services extensively. What we do is part of the platform to provide offline capability, so you can store data obviously on the web, but most of the time if you're mobile, you probably want some offline storage of data, so we provide that capability in there. And also the ability to have push notifications across all platforms, so whether it be Android, Apple, Windows. We have a push notification hub in that service there to be able to provide that for you. So that just gives you, like, I guess, a quick insight. Again, I'm happy to share docs and stuff like that on how you could use it. And yeah, these are free trials, so which are open forever. You know, you jump on, use it for free if you like. Also happy to help you out. We do use our what's called SAP UI5 technology for the UI bit, but you don't have to use our UI technology. Everything's open REST interfaces, so if you use JSON, you can use JSON to talk to our platform. Actually, what's happening with the messages here is I'm sending JSON messages back to the platform, and that's how it's storing them. Okay, it's actually really easy, web API kind of stuff. So fairly open, fairly easy to use. The only thing that's closed, I guess, is the platform. So you know, you have the access to the API layer, but anything below is kind of closed off. But that's there available for you, and yeah, it provides some default libraries like the graph libraries which I used before. All they're part of the UI5 framework. So, is everyone clear now on so far? Yep, all good. Okay. So now I'm actually going to talk about, I mentioned before design thinking, and has anyone in here covered or done design thinking or? Oh, okay. It's good. It's one's better than none, I guess. So that's good. So design thinking is, I guess, it's more of a methodology which we've adopted the past few years. It's come out of Stanford, D School. They've got the design school at Stanford. I guess he was one of the founders of SAP, a guy called Hasso Plattner. They call him he's got the Hasso Plattner Institute at Stanford. He gave Stanford University $50 million to get one of these schools up and running. Right? He's a very wealthy man, and wanted to see how we could better engage customers. So he funded Stanford to basically create this design school and work with them and come up with these studios. Now, I've been lucky enough to go there because we've also got labs in Palo Alto. We've got a design lab which is really out of this world. Kind of similar to what I see out there, but imagine like 5 floors of it, and it goes on for a little while. So it was actually really cool to see. But design thinking is really about, I guess for us, understanding the user. So what you end up doing is you end up creating what we call personas. Now personas are kind of like a concept of a person, right? So for example, I'm thinking of, I came up with the concept of enchanted milk, right? And what you'd have to do is you'd have to think of the persona. The persona in my instance might be a mother, right? A young mother with kids. And you actually go through a workshop and go, okay, I'm a young mother with kids. This is what my day's like, okay? And you go through her day, how she feels, what's her pain points, what's her stress, right? You might think, well, you know, that's totally out there. You're not really, but it's about understanding the user and how easy and simple they probably want to be able to do these things. So for example, with the change of milk, you'd think, well, if there was a bad milk run or something, she'd want to know as soon as possible because she's about to give her kids breakfast in the morning. Okay? And she's already stressed out because she's just had 3 kids and she's trying to get 3 kids ready for kindy or whatever, and there's already all these pressures on her. So how can we make it as easy as possible for her? Right? And so we work with people. We actually bring end users in. We bring the technology people in. We bring, you know, the business side of, you know, the guys who actually fund this kind of. So we bring everyone together in a small group, so everyone is on the same page with where we're trying to go. Okay? Now, you might think this is bizarre and it sounds like a waste of time, but I've run this with several customers and it's incredible. It really is. It puts, again, it's about putting everyone on the same page of where we want to meet. Okay? Because we're always in the back thinking, okay, this is what we think a customer wants. But until you get the customer in the room and get them to explain, actually, first thing in the morning, I don't care about that. This is what I want to do. Okay? Is how you better understand that. So design thinking, I recommend if you haven't had a look to try and better understand your users, have a look at it. We've found it quite powerful. And you know, we're not the only organisation. There's a huge amount of organisations. Actually, Microsoft's recently talked about how they're using design thinking and also focusing design thinking on the disabled user. Okay, which you might think, okay, how's that any different? There are subtle differences which most people don't think about. You know, a disabled user trying to access a system or whatever. There was a few interesting things there, and we're currently doing some work with DHS, you know, and things which we didn't actually think of and go, well, you know, on, you know, this screen, be able to click that and go, actually, I'm not too sure. And at the end of the day, it didn't. So we had to build a special customization around it. So it's really about thinking about all your users, you know, and what they need to do, and what their day's like, and how they access the solution. Okay? And again, the solution doesn't have to be a phone, an iPad, a keyboard. It could be, you know, a milk, a piece of what's called a paint tin. Okay, and as these embedded chips and technology get cheaper, this is how people are going to start interacting with these bits of technology. Okay, and that's what we're seeing actually quite a bit now as well. So design thinking is kind of where we start to try and understand the user, and we have a whole methodology around it. Okay. So we do design thinking, we come up with the ideas, then we do this whole concept of a user research. So we understand the persona, we sit with the users, and we understand how they try and interact with the system, how easy it is for them to click, how easy it is for them to understand, and we get their feedback. Then once we do that, we come up with some screen mock-ups, and we do what we call a user validation, okay? Which is basically we feed back our ideas and our concepts through mock-ups, through designs, back to them and see what they think. And yeah, this is an agile process, so it might happen, you know, 3-4 times before we get it right, but we're always getting that feedback. Okay. Previously with SAP, the way things would do is you do like a 500-page requirement documents and just get 500 people to code it, and out you go. This is it. This is what you get. Done. Oh, you want to change? You want this change? Want that change? We've kind of changed the way of doing things. So this is how we're taking our approach now. Then we run something called a sprint zero. Okay, and a sprint zero is basically, again, working with them, with the system in place, with their data, and then just making sure that, you know, in their everyday process, everything happens. So it's normally like a 1-2 week process. Okay. Then once that's done, once everyone's happy with where we're at, we do a custom development project, which is our team. We get our guys, we develop it, and then we feed it back. And this happens iteratively. So let me go into my next screen here. So we have the 3D process, or D3 process. So we do the whole idea of define. So we've got our personas. We understand what they are, their pain points, what they need. We create a backlog of items because users will want everything there and there, right? But in reality, we've got time frames, we've got everything we need to commit. Let's create a backlog, understand what we can do now, and keep the rest in several sprints. So we capture all this information. Then we do a bit of UX design. We use that. We've got UX designers. They come in, and that's also something really important that I think SAP has discovered. Even I've discovered. I try and do design. I'm okay, but design people are really design people, right? They know. There's just something about they know the right thing. It's like my wife in some ways as well. I think I try and do something nice, and then she does it, and I'm like, oh god, yeah, you get it. I don't. But they have a different way of looking at things, and they just blend the colours and make everything the way it uses. Everything is just a lot nicer when you use someone from design. As I said, I try, and I do okay, but when you use someone with a design background, that really helps make a difference there. And then, we start going into sprint planning, review, keep going until finally there's a solution delivery. Now, these a whole project we normally probably take up to 6 months, right? Because once you get from the design all the way to the end, several iterations, sign off, it normally takes about 6 months. That's the average, okay? There's ones that go for much bigger because they go, well, we want these extra features, and it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, which in some ways, I've heard the concept that your software is always in beta, right? It's always evolving. There's never a final release. Okay? You're always developing, evolving. It's always changing. Okay? And so that's what we do. We just keep going and going and going until finally. And things change. Customers, the strategy, different CIO comes in, different strategy comes in play. Things change again. Right? Your users might change as well. So there's a whole reason why it's going there. Okay. So what we want to do is actually probably have we want to say we have the right mindset in the right place. Okay. And again, it's about interactions with the people using your system. Okay. Before, and I know someone has technology, I'll go, oh look, I use this cool tool and all that. Users don't care about what tools you use, or you use Ruby on Rails. I don't care. It's about how easy you can make it for the user. Okay? Working software over comprehensive documentation. We are renowned for that. I know because I've seen spec documents with 300 pages long and stuff like that. But sometimes just to see a few simple clicks to get things going is probably all the documentation that you need. And sometimes the best software doesn't have any documentation. You just get there and start to use it, get how to use it. And this is probably more guilty of the big business guys, custom collaboration over contract negotiation. That's a big part still of the business. I won't say that doesn't exist, but we find that when you're dealing with people and try and understand them, then that side of the process reduces significantly, right? Because they go, okay, you see you've invested your time, there's no kind of, you play the poker, it's called Texas Hold'em, on what you got to get. It's really an engaging process, a lot different. And what's called responding to change over following a plan. Again, it's a whole agile process, right? Sometimes we plan things, but actually when we actually run into execution, we realise things actually work quite differently. Okay. One of the best things I've ever done, and actually was before I even joined SAP. Okay. I was working with Intermec, which is now owned by a company called Honeywell, and they did industrial device scanners. Okay. And I was working with a company back then who thought they wrote the best transport and logistics software in the world, right? Because the users, look how easy it is, and blah blah blah. And it was actually for a company called Coots Transport. Now Coots Transport no longer exists because there was a huge accident a few years ago, and they're injured because they weren't maintaining their trucks very well. But that's a different story altogether. The software which they ran, they hadn't spent any time with the truck drivers. Okay? So I said, okay, I'll spend some time with the truck driver. So seriously, 3 a.m. in the morning, I had to go to a truck depot in Dandenong with this truck driver who had a really bizarre life and story, who I learnt about. But the first thing he did, 3 a.m., he's got this device glaring at him, right? And he's a truck driver. First thing he does, takes off his hat, puts it on top of the device. He's going, it distracts me, I'm going to have an accident if I've got this device looking at me. I can't work like this. And I'm like, a common sense thing. I mean, you have a look now, you have your GPS. Your GPS goes into night mode, okay, at night. So it's not got these glaring white backgrounds, it's got dark, hopefully your GPS does. It has these dark colours to kind of suit the environment around it, okay. The guys that have written the software not even thought about that these guys are actually delivering fuel early hours of the morning, and to have this screen glaring at them is actually a massive distraction. And I go, well, no wonder this solution, it wasn't even being used, because from the minute you get in the truck, it's distracting them. Okay, so we're back. You know, we gave all this feedback back to the developers, and they're like, "Duh, you know, I should have thought of that." But yeah, and actually they applied all the changes. Customer was really happy, rolled out, and then other disasters happened, but that wasn't around the software. So it just gives you some insight. And when you, I guess, live the life, or I guess walk in the shoes of your customer, you have a whole different experience and understand what's going on there. I mean, there's a whole lot of things, you know, that pop up here, but the whole thing is about the people. Okay, we build these solutions for people. It's about understanding the people using these solutions. Okay, you can build the best solution in the world, but if the people you're accessing, you know, if they can't use the technology, then it's not going to get used. You know, I won't talk about a customer, but I know a customer that spent $5 billion on an implementation, a software implementation. And when we went out and saw it in the sites, no one was using it. People were using spreadsheets and all that to capture information because they found it too hard. Because the systems integrator didn't actually spend any time with them. They were given a requirements document. And imagine, $5 billion. What would I would happily, you know, write something for them for $5 billion. I'll put a team together for them for $5 billion and do something, right? But they didn't sit with the users. And seriously, the software is not being used. And I find that, you know, surprising and terrible, but that's still happening today. Okay? So, you know, you're still going into places and still people aren't able to use the software. So it's really about putting the user first, user-centric development technologies, and that's where we're kind of we're moving towards as well. So I've actually kind of used my full hour, so I've only 3 minutes left, but I've got my X-Wing there, so I'm ready to take any questions. Not that I'm going to attack, I'm actually quite the opposite. But happy to have any questions or anything you'd like to ask or anything regarding what I've just presented. I'm happy to hear about.
Thank you, Nicholas. Has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. That was wonderful insights.
Okay.
I was wondering, is SAP working with people in museum spaces or exhibition spaces exhibiting cultural heritage? So a lot of those applications I can see is like fitting into museum spaces.
Yeah. Look, I'll find out. I know that we've been working with, I guess gaming like Disney and stuff like that. We've been working with those kind of environments. So we were a big player in. If anyone's been to Disneyland, they've got the Disney band, like the RFID band and stuff like that. We were a big player in that kind of space. But definitely, you could see how that could apply in that kind of environment as well. As you move around, you know, it gives you feedback, it gives you some kind of information, some kind of sensation that you're there. I mean, there's another concept I want to build. I'll see whether I have time to do it. It's about finding time, but. You know, one of the weirdest things I've seen recently is haptic responses, and actually haptic responses from speaker systems. So there was, I've forgotten who the speaker system was, but basically to get haptic feedback, you'd kind of feel a push of air behind your head to say that, yeah, it's going to start playing in a couple of seconds. And the journalist said, that was the weirdest experience I've ever had. It was cool. But I don't know about how much I like that, because it's kind of getting a bit personal that you're being touched with bursts of air, right? Because like ghosts or something, you know, touching you using, I guess, sound. But look, I think that's actually another cool. You know, we might think that's strange, but maybe for a blind person, that's kind of ideal, because that's how their other sensory items are. You know, they're looking for that kind of thing.
Is that like a scary thing for users, that the fact that a lot of these communications are invisible, and it's sort of a very artificial layer that they can't see, and who knows if if something's, the beer bottle's going to say, be surprised by a sound here, and you can never really control that or have a.
Yeah.
It's very it's a surprise during their everyday practice of life. Is that where's their attention going as well?
Yeah. Oh, you wouldn't want the beer calling at you while you're driving, right? You got the beer, I'm too hot, not like you're going to have a drink then and there anyway,
Yeah.
right? You'd probably have certain control sensors in there. You're right. Look, we'd have to investigate that further. I mean, because you're right, in that kind of scenario, that could actually be quite dangerous. Being notified when actually you don't want it, you're doing something critical or something, and you've got a beer yapping at you and things like that. It's good.
But that's the idea. The beer knows you, right? The beer knows the customer, the user.
The user, yeah, and look, maybe it knows during work hours when to bug you, right? And that's part of the intelligence you build into the application. Or maybe bug you during work hours because at home you've got no chance you can have a drink. So, but certain companies would allow that. But it depends. You'd have an openness, and it's up to the people developing it to have that whole. As I was talking about the technologies, I was talking about the user accepting to participate in the experience, right? I think it's about making sure that the users have to have that experience in that way, because if they're not, then don't try it. Right? That people want their privacy, don't want things, whatever, and leave it at that. I think your point is also valid because I hear of things like Nest, the Google, about how they're saying they're going to start putting cameras in there and stuff like that, because then they say, oh, well, they know if you're walking around to keep the heating going or whatever if you're not there, but then how about if someone hacks it, spies? There's all these other implications there as well. So, they're all valid points, and that's a security privacy thing. I think we've still got a bit of a way to go around that whole security privacy piece before that gets across, but it's happening, and certain companies are doing this kind of things now, but again, with the approval of the user.
Is it pretty unanimous that user-centered design is just the way to create a holistic methodology, or is there others out there who are a bit hang on, we want to control our.
Oh, definitely. Well. You still deal with government and some certain organisations, and they're still there's a process, there's a governance process in place here. We're traditional. This is the process. It's slowly changing, but slowly. And there'll always be those people who are kind of adamant, and sometimes it might make sense to be like that. I guess, I don't know, maybe although I can't actually see it at any point, I was going to say with like mission critical kind of like space systems or something, but even that's got to be usable because you want it to be as easy as possible, so you don't kill someone in a rocket. Make it as simple as easy to use.
Have you had a particular idea or a particular technology that you just thought, this is genius and everyone's going to love it, and it was just really overwhelmingly rejected by? Or vice versa, something you thought,
no, that's a valid point as well. So one of the other ideas I thought was going to be really cool was the concept of tickle. So hear me out here. Because you're going tickle, sounds weird. But tickle in the sense of what I want to do is, we've got all these apps now like WhatsApp and whatever, and Facebook Messenger and all that, and they interact with you by notifications and everything. What I thought is, how about if you set a certain vibration for a certain user, right? And so that without having to pull out your phone or whatever, if the phone or something vibrates or your watch vibrates in a certain way, it's my wife, kids or whatever. And I thought that was a really cool idea. I thought, it's going to be the next WhatsApp, right? Because people are going to be sending tickles to everyone. I can't even with the name, tickles. I'm going to tickle you and send that, and I got lambasted, seriously. They're just going, no, this is so wrong. How about the kid? Because I brought up the kid example, and they're going, pedophiles crack the network, and then I'm just like, okay, this all gets too hard, and I don't want to go down that realm, because that's a lot. As a dad myself as well, I don't want to go down that realm. But these things happen because there's that user, which the kid's cool, but then you think the parents and then their security and stuff like that, and that's a persona I didn't think, even though I am one myself, and just got blasted away. So and that's why it's good to have like these design thinking sessions, because you get everyone in the room and you get everyone's insight. So rather than going down and developing something that's possibly going to be a disaster, you get the direct feedback. One of the cool ones actually we did was with 7-Eleven, and I think this was a really cool idea that wasn't taken forward. So 7-Eleven's now have got Australian Post parcel boxes at the front. So because Australia Post offices aren't always open, you can now go to your post box to get things out. Well, one of the girls actually in part of our group's going, oh, you know, there's a lot of people buying stuff online. Wouldn't it be good if we had like a change room, just a mini area in the 7-Eleven where people could, you know, try on the stuff that they've just bought, and if they don't like it, they can just put it straight away in the return envelope and put it back in the mail? I go, that's awesome. That's a really good idea. You know, they're already there. You know, why have to take it home and try it on, then come back out and, you know, put it in the. It would really work, but the management just said no, not going to happen. Floor space is everything. Don't want people getting changed in there. Could cause all kinds of other problems. Done. Finished. And that's the reality of it, I think. Yeah. So you just got to keep going. Sometimes you'll get knockbacks, and sometimes you go, yeah, that's really cool. So just I guess a trial and error process, unfortunately. So.
Fantastic.
I've got a question. You said that the design, at which point in your 3D design process do you set up actually the contract?
The contract?
Yeah.
As in like with the customer?
Collaboration, it's more important than the contract, but the contract at the end is telling how much money you get as SAP.
Yeah. Look, especially as SAP, contracts play a big role, right? So we've got very creative ways in we create contracts now. So we've got this new, we're being recorded now as well, so I might get in trouble, but we've got this new concept called design to budget, which is basically we work with the customer, we identify a few projects, and we say, well, you know, according to your users' feedback, what we've kind of understood, you're possibly going to spend X amount of money with SAP, right? And what we do is we give them a justification on all the projects and you know, people we've interacted with, and what that does is they don't actually have to put any money in. What it says is this is your scope, okay? This is what we think you're going to spend. You don't have to spend anything, but what you do is you sign the contract so we can have the legalities done, and then we can continue in this process. Now what that does is that gives an upfront, so that contract isn't a problem, and then as we build, we can start billing as we go. So there's kind of no upfront mutual costs, if you know what I mean. So we've kind of come up with a constructive way of getting a process started with a contract where they're not having to put any upfront money. We take a risk because we go in there and learn, but it's kind of like a risk investment. Right? So we'll spend time, we'll do things. If it turns out, then we'll obviously get money with the. If it doesn't, then we'll. And normally in that process, you normally tease out, is this a real project? If not, then we'll back away. If it is, then we'll continue. So, yeah.
Okay.
Question?
Yeah.
I'm yet to land a job at a place like IDEO or SAP that follows the whole D3 process to the T, because it takes a lot of money, as you could imagine, to do the interviews and build the personas and do the testing. So I'm curious, like, which part of that process, like say if you have less money, is like the most rewarding, the most important part that you would choose?
The design thinking. Unless you're in front of the user, forget it. I think seriously getting in there, getting in the room with the design thinking, that's the most important part of the process, because the rest is just add on from there. Right? And don't get me wrong, we've come up with many of these things where we've come up with really cool ideas and they haven't progressed, right? But at least we've been in touch with their users and we've told this is what your users want. If the customer chooses not to go forward, then that's their fault. We then have applied those same things in other customer sites. So the banking example one, you know, ANZ Bank was still a bit funny about it, but we rolled it out to a few other companies globally, okay? Because we understand how users wanted to interact and made a few changes and made that change. So we'll reuse maybe some concepts, and again, it all depends on, you know, how open things are. I think the design thinking is definitely the most important part of that whole 3D.
So defining your audience basically is the most.
Yeah, understanding your user, definitely.
All right. No, I think we'll call it the end of the seminar.
Thank you.
Thank you again. I think you're going to hang about just a little bit to hug the little crowd, and I guess if anybody wants to grab Nick for any other questions or just